Are there any kids to join me this morning? This week, I do need you guys to sit down in front so I can see your faces, okay? And you can see mine. There's plenty of room for everybody. Good. Yeah, you can be right. You can be on the sides if you're close, just so that I can see you. Oops. There's room. Yeah, come on in. Good. That's my microphone. All right. So, I don't know if you kids know, I've got a little boy of my own at home. He's 4 years old. He's almost 5. He likes to tell, you're 4 too? It's about the same age as my son. Yeah, 6. Wow. And every night before he goes to bed, either his mama or I tell him something very important. And it's so important that I want to tell it to you guys too, particularly given everything that's going on in the world around us right now. It's something that I need you all to promise me that you will remember, because the world is going to try to convince you that what I'm going to tell you isn't the truth. But it is the truth, okay? So I need you guys to all pay close attention and listen. Remember that each one of you is a child of God. Remember that each one of you is created in God's own image. That means that we are like God, each one of us just as much as the next one, and nobody more so than anybody else. Remember that when God sees you, God smiles with joy. Remember, no matter what anyone else ever tries to tell you to the contrary, remember, always remember, that God loves you very, very, very much. And remember that all of these things I've just told you about you and God apply to every other human being too. Hopefully you guys are still a little on the young side to know how hard the world will try to convince you that those things are not the truth. Keep remembering that. And keep telling yourself those things I just told you. Because that's okay. Don't worry about him. Thank you. Because these things are what the world depends on. You guys remembering these things I've just told you is what's going to change the world. And it's what's going to be the antidote to so much of what is wrong out in the world, okay? Now, you three wait. I'm already learning. In a minute, we're going to go and get our stamps. We're not going to charge over there. We're going to walk over and get in line. And you're going to follow me. And I'm going to say, walking. And back up a little. You'll still get your stamp. Don't worry. Before I give you guys these stamps, I want to tell you that the stamp has nothing to do today with the sermon I've just given you. But it does have something to do with another thing that's happening this week. This week, the church will be celebrating the feast of St. Michael and all angels. And I have an angel stamp for you this morning, and a little prayer that I was taught when I was a child, about the same age as you guys are. Angel of God, my guardian dear, to whom God's love commits me here, ever this day be at my side, to light, to guard, to rule, to guide. Amen. There you go. Okay. Next. There we go. The sermon this week was just about as hard for me to prepare as the one last week. Not because, like last week, we had a difficult parable. Last week, it was all about how do I make sense out of the parable. Once I made some sense out of the parable, the sermon was fine. The problem this week is that the parable is very easy to understand. And it comes crashing into the world that we all know right now. And if we don't feel convicted by this parable, there is something wrong with our consciences. Jesus tells a story about a rich man and a poor man. The poor man, we are told, is named Lazarus, which is the Greek or Roman way of rendering an old Hebrew name, Eleazar, which means God is my help. We're told that the poor man laid day after day after day at the gates of the house of this rich man, starving, dying slowly of whatever this disease that caused him to have sores, being treated as nothing more than human refuse. And that when he died, he was taken into heaven. Not because he had gone and done a bunch of really good things, but simply because, as his own name suggests, God keeps God's promises. Even if human beings would not come to the help of Lazarus, God would and did. The other character in the story, this rich man, doesn't have a name. He doesn't need one. He's every man. He's us. You may have heard him in different tellings of the story called by the name of Divus, but even Divus is simply a Latin word that means rich guy. It's not a name. It's a description. And this rich guy, who lives a life that any of us might be envious of while he's on earth, finds himself after death not in the enviable position of being in the bosom of Abraham, but instead in a place of torment. And there's a chasm between this rich guy and our friend Lazarus. I think that chasm is 100% due to the fact that our rich guy could never see Lazarus as a child of God. Even in death, he still can't see him as a child of God. In life, he was the guy that the rich man stepped over or kicked out of the way. And in death, oh, well, don't bother yourselves with my torment. Just send Lazarus. I'm sure he won't mind. The reason I told the kids what I told them this morning is because as we look at the world around us, at Charlotte and Tulsa, and before those places at Minneapolis and at Orlando and at Dallas. And the list goes on and on and on of the places where violence breaks into our world and people die because we cannot see each other as children of God. The antidote to what ails us is that simple truth that I told the kids. But we all know it isn't quite so simple, because it takes a long time to forget that you are a child of God, or to be convinced that you are not a child of God. And it takes a long time to forget that other people are children of God. And that's why I say that we all ought to be convicted by the parable that we've heard this morning, because it's not only the ways in which we ourselves go out and treat other people, but it's the ways in which the society that has made us teaches others, and the ways in which we let that society continue on without challenge. I don't know about you all, but I spent a lot of time this week crying. Weeping over my brothers and sisters who are suffering and dying, weeping over my brothers and sisters who cannot comprehend the suffering and dying of my brothers and sisters. Weeping over the fact that my own little boy has to go out into a world that is something less than gospel perfect. But the solution to all of it starts back where I started with the kids, with all of us digging deep into our own memories and remembering the promise that was made to each one of us in our baptism, that each one of us is a child of God, that each one of us in our great diversity are still each created in the image and likeness of God, that each one of us does cause God to experience joy, that contrary to all of the dirt and grime that the world might have put on us in our lifetimes, that God still loves each one of us very, very, very much. And that all these things that we can remember about ourselves and God really do apply to every human being too.